In the heart of Massachusetts, where the streets whisper tales of old and the shadows play tricks on the unsuspecting, I've walked the beat. For the sake of this tale, you can call me Jack. It's not my real name, but it'll do. Ever since I was a kid, the allure of the badge, the siren's call, had me hooked. The dream of being a cop was the only one that ever took root in my heart. 7 years. That's how long I've worn the uniform, patrolling the streets of a small urban town not too far from the bustling city of Boston. Most nights, it's the usual: junkies losing themselves to their next high, or neighbors squabbling over matters too trivial for the law to care about. But every once in a while, the radio crackles with something more sinister: a robbery, a murder. Last night, as the clock's hands inched past 1 in the morning, and I was indulging in a well-deserved burger, the dispatcher's voice broke through. 2 to 51, come in. I sighed, taking a bite of my meal. Go ahead, I responded, the taste of grease and meat still on my tongue. We've got a report about a homeless man, mid-50s, acting strange. 5 blocks from you, near that old construction site. I rolled my eyes. That site was infamous for its homeless gatherings, a place where dreams went to die. The address she provided was nestled in a neighborhood that had seen better days, where folks tried to piece together a semblance of a life amidst the rubble. Burger in hand, I made my way to my cruiser and drove to the location. There on her porch stood an elderly woman, her face pale and eyes wide with fear. As I approached, maintaining a safe distance, she recounted her tale. She'd been treating her grandkids to a late-night movie when a sound outside caught her attention. Peering out, she saw a man, old and ragged, banging his head against her house, then crawling and twitching in a way that sent shivers down her spine. She called us, but before I arrived, the man had wandered off towards the construction site. I was about to head in that direction when she called out, "Wait." I turned to see her rush inside, leaving the door ajar. 2 young faces, curious and innocent, peeked out at me. I offered a reassuring smile, but they vanished as quickly as they appeared. Moments later, the old woman returned, clutching a small crucifix and a jar that seemed to contain water. She approached, and I instinctively stepped back, reminding her of the need for distance. But she was undeterred, muttering something in Spanish that I'm pretty sure wasn't a compliment. She was a tiny thing, barely reaching my chest, but her presence was commanding. She extended the crucifix towards me, a beautifully carved piece with a detailed figure of Jesus on it. The weight of the situation and the gravity in her eyes told me this wasn't just another routine call. The old woman's fingers, gnarled with age and wisdom, gently wrapped around my hand, placing the crucifix within my grasp. "For safety," she whispered, her voice carrying the weight of countless years and countless stories. Uncapping the jar, she sprinkled the water upon me, murmuring an ancient prayer in Spanish. My grasp of the language wasn't perfect, but the words she spoke were clear enough. A blessing for protection against the malevolence of this world and the next, and a plea for the safety of my family. I found it peculiar, but I nodded in gratitude, slipping the crucifix into the shirt pocket over my heart as I returned to my cruiser. Dialing dispatch, I informed them of my intent to investigate the abandoned construction site. Their voice crackled back, "Do you want backup?" I declined, feeling the weight of the crucifix against my chest. I'm not a man of faith, but I've always believed that religious artifacts, regardless of one's beliefs, can offer a sense of solace and security. This small gesture was my way of honoring the old woman's concern. The abandoned site loomed ahead, its skeletal frame a testament to broken dreams and failed ventures. Originally envisioned as a 4-story housing complex, its construction was halted due to lack of funds. Now it stood as a haven for the lost souls of the city. The dim glow from the streetlights barely penetrated the site's perimeter, and the once sturdy chain-link fence was now a twisted mess, allowing easy access to anyone daring enough to venture inside. Exiting my cruiser, I was struck not by the eerie silence of the building, but by the sight of its many inhabitants, all gathered outside, their eyes wide with fear. Activating my body cam, I approached a woman, her arms bearing the telltale signs of addiction. She spoke of a stranger on the third floor, a man who seemed to have a sinister influence over those who interacted with him. Navigating through the crowd, I identified the man from the elderly woman's description. His recollection of the events was hazy at best, claiming he felt compelled to act as he did. After issuing a warning and ensuring he wouldn't return to the old woman's residence, I radioed for backup to manage the crowd while I delved deeper into the mystery of the building. Retrieving my shotgun and additional ammunition from the cruiser, I ventured into the building. My flashlight cut through the darkness, revealing the remnants of what could have been. Having been here on multiple occasions for drug busts, I was familiar with its layout. I methodically cleared the first floor before ascending the staircase, each step echoing in the vast emptiness. The third floor awaited, and with it, the answers to the night's enigma. The third floor was a maze of discarded remnants of lives once lived. Beer bottles, old newspapers, and other debris littered the floor. I nearly lost my footing when I stumbled upon an abandoned shopping cart, filled to the brim with an assortment of items. Pushing it aside with a muttered curse, I continued my search. Each room I entered was a testament to the transient nature of its inhabitants, but one door stood out. It was locked. In a place where privacy was a luxury, this was unusual. I knocked, announcing my presence, but was met with silence. Taking a deep breath, I kicked the door open. Now, I've seen my fair share of horrors in my 7 years on the force. Crime scenes that would make most stomachs churn, but nothing could have prepared me for what lay beyond that door. The room was shrouded in an impenetrable darkness, save for a figure seated in its center. A tall, impossibly lanky man, dressed in a tattered gray suit, his bald head gleaming faintly. He seemed ancient, yet there was something otherworldly about him. My flashlight's beam seemed to be swallowed by the darkness, rendering it useless. A deep primal fear gripped me. My knees wobbled, and my heart raced as I trained my shotgun on him. As if sensing my intent, he began to rise. Slowly, he turned to face me, revealing a visage that defied description. This wasn't a man. It was something else entirely. His suit, though old and frayed, clung to his skeletal frame, revealing protruding bones. His skin, a sickly gray, bore the scars and blisters of unimaginable trauma. But it was his face that will forever haunt my dreams. Enormous, bulbous eyes stared back at me, their whiteness punctuated by tiny black pupils. A gaping triangular hole served as his nose, but it was his mouth that truly horrified me. It stretched grotesquely across his face, filled with an unnerving number of ordinary teeth. When he smiled, it was a sea of an M. Frozen in terror, I barely registered his voice when he spoke. It was eerily reminiscent of a character from an old viral video, Salad Fingers, with that unsettling British lilt. "Hello," he whispered, his voice sending shivers down my spine. He extended a skeletal finger, pointing directly at me. "Are you here to take me away?" he asked, his tone almost childlike in its innocence. Confusion and terror roared within me. What was this creature, and what did it want? The creature's voice, a haunting whisper, broke my trance. Who am I?" it inquired, its head tilting curiously. I nodded slowly, my voice failing me. "Nobody you'd care to know," it murmured, its voice tinged with a melancholy that seemed to stretch back eons. "Nobody cares to know me. Nobody ever did." It began to mumble, its voice growing softer, its attention drifting away from me. Seizing the moment, I began to retreat, but a floorboard betrayed me with a loud creak. The creature's head snapped towards me, its eyes now filled with an ancient rage. It lunged, closing the distance between us in an instant. My shotgun's barrel pressed against its abdomen. The darkness that enveloped the room seemed to emanate from its very being. Its gaze locked onto mine, a maelstrom of emotions swirling within. "Don't leave me like the others did," it pleaded, its voice a chilling blend of anger, desperation, and fear. Without hesitation, I fired, the force sending it reeling backward. I turned and sprinted towards the staircase, the creature's enraged screams echoing behind me. The walls shook with its fury, but as I reached the stairs and fired another round, the hallway was eerily empty. Emerging from the building, the flashing lights of squad cars blinded me. Officers and paramedics swarmed, their questions and concerns a cacophony in my ears. My body cam, which should have captured everything, had somehow turned off midway, leaving my claims unsupported save for the incoherent testimonies of a few addicts. After a whirlwind of medical checks and debriefings, I was sent home, the early morning hours weighing heavily on me. Entering my bedroom, I found my wife in a peaceful slumber. As I changed, I realized the crucifix, the old woman's protective charm, was missing. Dismissing it as a minor loss, I joined my wife in sleep, seeking refuge from the night's horrors. The morning sun brought a semblance of normalcy. I embraced my family, recounting the previous night's events to my wife. Her skepticism was evident, but her support unwavering. Later, as we tidied our room, a familiar object caught my eye. The crucifix lay on her dresser, accompanied by a folded note. Unfurling it, my blood ran cold. 4 words, written in a shaky hand, sent shivers down my spine. Please don't leave me. The weight of the night's events and the implications of that message bore down on me, a chilling reminder of the unknown horrors that lurk in the shadows.